Welcome to an episode of Unscripted. What we are doing today, off the record, we are talking about what do I feel about Dragonflight. After being in the beta for a good while, what have been my impressions about all of the systems coming in Dragonflight, all of the systems remaining in Shadowlands and not being continued, and all of the different changes and things that will be present in the expansion. I just wanted to make it more clear, to give you my actual impressions, because we are spending time making videos talking about what Blizzard feeds us, right? So we're talking about balance tuning. When there is balance tuning, we're talking about changes to the Great Vault, or changes to the Creation Catalyst, or changes to the Professions, because that's what's getting modified in the expansion. But I wanted to have a video just to express my general idea and general thoughts about the expansion itself. Of course, I am very professional, so I sent a format from a couple of very highly rated graphic designers for how to judge and rate all of these systems in Dragonflight, and they came back to me with this. To be fair, they only costed about $3 an hour, so I think they did an excellent job. Unironically, the order you see written here is the order I believe is the most important for an expansion. Yes, indeed, I do indeed believe that having a good open world is more important than having good classes or professions or raids or Mythic Plus. Yes, raid is above Mythic Plus, but that's just, you know, okay, fine, just in case you don't get triggered, okay, we're doing this. They are even, okay, on the same level. So the first one is the systems. As I said, what is the general idea about the systems that are not coming from Shadowlands and the systems that are being introduced or continued from Shadowlands? So there aren't many things that continue from Shadowlands. As we pointed out, the Covenants and the multiple abilities are gone, the Conduits are gone, you have Legendaries that are completely gone, you also have Anima, this weird experiment of keeping AP in the game but removing all of the player power from it, that's also gone. So that's great. Basically, these were all pretty bad things. You can argue that the last version of the Covenant system was acceptable. Being able to cycle through the different Covenants whenever you wanted, it wasn't too bad. But still, considering the damage it did at the start and for the first half of the expansion, it didn't deserve to continue to live. We had to put it down like the dog it was. The few things that continued from Shadowlands were the Great Vault and the Catalyst. You know, of the two things that we could have brought from Shadowlands, I believe these are amongst the better ones. The Great Vault, I believe, it's loot, so it's going to be universally liked, and the Catalyst is also loot, so it's also going to be liked. Yes, fine, some people are complaining about the fact that the Creation Catalyst is getting delayed by 6 weeks. You're gonna have to wait for 6 weeks before being able to use it. We already had a video about it. I don't think it's too bad. At the end of the day, 6 weeks is the same time you had to wait to open up the Catalyst in Season 3, so I don't think it's that bad. Plus, the system itself is nice, Great Vault is nice. A few other systems being introduced or changes, like the changes to the UI that is coming in Dragonflight. I don't care too much, to be perfectly honest, because I am using add-ons. I don't care how the UI is going to look in Dragonflight. I'm only using it because I have to make a video about it to show the changes to the UI. I'm not particularly thrilled myself, but I'm assuming apparently many people still live in the Stone Age, or they are still role-playing super hard to be boomers, so they like to play with the default UI. So in that, it's definitely a good change. So as far as the systems go, I think we can give it a, I don't know, I think a 75 out of 100 for now. I think it's been pretty good. The changes that they brought so far have been pretty good for systems. We don't have too much of a clue about any other things at the moment, but for now, I wouldn't be disappointed. So systems are fine. Now, open world. Unironically, the largest and highest rated feature I put in a MMORPG. That is, I think, is the core of an expansion and the core of a game. If it's an MMO, you need to find ways to put players outside. You need to find ways to keep players in the open world and give them something to do. I know it might shock you, but the average Mythic Raider and the average Mythic Plus player, and even, why not, the average PvP player, is going to be spending more time in the open world than they will in their favorite activity. Yes, maybe not at the end of the season, when they have already farmed whatever they had to farm and they are now just sitting in their content and raid logging or Mythic Plus logging if they're not, but when the expansion is new, when the expansion is fresh, the most time you want to spend is going to be in the open world. So it's going to be very important to give you reasons to stay in the open world, which is something that, as we pointed out in many videos, Shadowlands failed horribly. They took away all of the power from the AP grind, but unfortunately they did not repopulate the open world with things worth doing, which caused a big problem. So Dragonflight is addressing a few of these things. They even went as far as adding another system, which I haven't rated in the original systems, but I'm gonna keep it for the open world because it's dragon riding, right? That is a system made exclusively for the open world, which is great. It feels great. And other things in the open world which are about gathering power, but not nearly as forced as gathering AP, world quests, and daily quests and whatnot. Because we will get to that, to the profession rating, because professions are now much stronger. So you have way more of a reasons to go back in the open world and get resources, not necessarily from, mining and herbalism, actually from mobs. Stuff from mobs, from enemies, or from world quests and daily quests to help with profession crafting. The open world is using that system to put power into the game. They are not putting Titan Forging to bait you, to force you into go for world quests that give gear in the hopes that something Titan forges, and they are not using AP, something that you want to keep grinding because you want the power on your weapon or your necklace and whatnot. They are instead now tying this player power in the open world with professions, and it's being supported by a more engaging system like dragon riding. So I think it is more promising at the moment. This very loud mechanical keyboard, it's very promising at the moment. It still does have the question about how long does this profession thing last, right? First of all, we haven't even gotten the full thing in the beta. We still don't know how tough it's going to be to actually craft the Chad stuff, the actual difficult stuff. We do know the materials that you need, but it's not fully fleshed out in game. The Chaos Crystal acquisition, as well as a few other epic, hard to get materials, and it's not quite clear yet, but the default idea of still allowing you to get some power in the open world and having a much more extensive profession system with profession skill trees, with skill points you can earn in the open world, so they give you even more reasons to go in the open world to get the skill points to craft the cool stuff. That is what I think is for now a pretty good idea. Now, the actual other important thing is the classes, because, okay, fine, you keep players in the game with the open world that is engaging, but then players still have to play the game. They still have to use classes and specs, and then eventually they will have to enter some more higher forms of content, whether it is raids or Mythic Plus or PvP, that must have their specs and classes feel good, right? That's also a given. So we have had many videos about tuning, about the tuning Blizzard has made. I praised a little bit the increased communication of Blizzard in being more transparent on what are their plans for the specs in the next expansion, as well as the big change that will take over the talk of classes, which is the new talents. That is what is going to be the main thing that will shape the specs and classes. When you take away all of the conduits, the borrowed powers, the legendaries, the essences, the Azerite traits, what you have left is your talent tree. That is where the vast majority of the power will be. At the moment, I'm gonna sit at a very cautious 60, because if I had to rate what do I actually feel about the talents themselves, then I would be like a 95. I am very happy with the way the talents have been shaping up, or the idea of playing an entire expansion with these talents, as well as what Blizzard did not confirm, but made it quite possible that in future patches the trees will be expanded, will be enlarged. You will get more points and more options for your skill tree. That's also very exciting. So that base idea is great. I might also be lucky because I have been looking at specs to play, and most of them had a pretty good and comprehensive talents set already. So that's good. But then what is also important about classes is how they are balanced, not just how fun they are to play. That is where the 60 comes in, because at the moment I think the balancing being done to specs and classes is not good enough before the release of the expansion. I think the entirety of Priest is not in too good of a spot. I think Guardian Druid is also in not too good of a spot. Perhaps Red Paladin, perhaps Havoc Demon Hunter, perhaps Balanced Druid after it got nerfed in how it plays out. All of these things, I think, have not gotten enough changes So it leaves you with a little bit of a sour taste in your mouth in how it's playing out, because you are remaking the talents. You really need to make sure, now that all of the borrowed powers are out, all of the things that can bail you out of a bad spec are gone, and all that's left is the talent tree itself, you need to make sure you start on the right foot on all of these specs. And I don't think right now we are quite at that level when it comes to classes and their design. The idea itself, I'm a great fan of, absolutely, 100% the best version of a talent system that has been made in WoW. Please, vanilla talent WoW boomers, fuck off. This is clearly the best set of talents we've ever had, but the implementation so far is being a little bit sketchy. That's my point. Then we have the professions. So the thing about professions is that, as I said, they are not fully implemented, so we don't exactly know how hard it's going to be. If we had to just gauge by the sheer amount of number of reagents needed for epic crafting of gear, then this would be in the 40 to 50-ish range, because it would mean the requirement of far too much stuff for far too little gain, because the max craft I believe at the moment is 418, which is, it's good enough in our chart, in our super scattered chart of item levels in Dragonflight. It's not too bad, but the sheer amount of effort required, Blizzard wasn't kidding if that's gonna be the plan when they said this top mythic raid crafted gear is going to be very difficult to make, because it looks like it's quite on the heavy grind side. You can be happy about this because we go back to the open world point. It's gonna give you lots of time to do stuff in the open world, but it feels a little bit too much perhaps at the moment. The idea itself is of course great. You're getting way more things to work with. You're getting, as we pointed out already, the whole skill points for your talent trees of crafting. That is cool. Perhaps they could have went a little bit more, roleplay-ish with the, the good old Legion quests or professions. That would have been cool. At the moment, it still looks more or less good. As I said, the only fear I have is in the actual implementation of how much it's gonna take you to get these crafts done. Because if you make it too hard and you take away the excitement of the players to continue their professions, then your open world point, the score of your open world, is going to crumble. Because now the majority of the incentive of the open world, which is work with your profession, is gone. If it gets too hard, if it gets too grindy. That is the risk when it comes to the professions at the moment. Then we have raids, and of course Mythic Plus, completely, totally at the same level. Well, I mean, what is there to say? We just don't know. We have a raid, it's been tested a few times, it's way too early to give a normal judgment. Mythic Plus, the only thing we can judge, besides how the dungeons look, is of course the seasonal affix, which... it's an affix, okay, it exists. It has some zeros and some ones in some lines of code that form whatever that was, but so far we can't really give, too much rating to both of these. I am just going to sit back and tentatively say that, generally speaking, raiding and Mythic Plus have been positive notes in expansions from when Mythic Plus was introduced in Legion and then BFA and Shadowlands. Many players are perfectly fine and happy with Mythic Plus. Raiding has also been quite good. So, generally speaking, those two are going to be high quality. We just don't know yet exactly what. We can just talk about the bad state of the affix and not too much else. For now, as I said, it's a tentative positive feeling given the credit, right? Where Blizzard as a whole doesn't have much credit, and many of the systems nowadays don't get too much credit, and people are not too optimistic about the things they push out, I would say, at least for raiding and for Mythic Plus, I am somewhat positive on both of them to be good enough in the next expansion. Lastly, you have PvP. I don't PvP. I haven't PvP'd since like TBC. I'm talking about semi-seriously. So this is very good, because actually this is what should be very important for PvP players, right? Getting more players into PvP, making Blizzard notice PvP more and making PvP more of a way to be recognized. You don't care about the 50 sweaty top rating arena players. That's not gonna give you the attention you want from Blizzard. It's much better to focus more things on the wider part of the player base to get them more into PvP. At the end of the day, those type of top players, all they need is an arena, is literally a closed circle to fight in, and they are happy. The thing I wanted to point out in PvP, which we were talking about a few days ago, was rated solo shuffle. Only for that, and exclusively for that, is my rating so high for PvP? As I said, I think it's the dark horse of the expansion when it comes to good features. I think it's going to be the reason why many players will get back into PvP and will give much more emphasis and importance, much more relevance to PvP in the next expansion because of rated solo shuffle and how many more players will get into that activity. So with this all done, this is my general idea I have right now on the expansion, on how it has been looking so far. The majority of things have been cautiously optimistic. I have, a good feeling about the way they have been able to navigate around what the hell do we end up putting in the open world that makes players stay in it. We had to go in Legion and BFA and create this very grifting style of playing with people's emotions and their dopamine receptors by telling you, go in the open world because there are Titan forging items that you can get. You can get a top mythic raiding quality item from an open world quest. You have to continue to be in the open world to grind AP because you need to unlock your second and third rings on the Azerite armor, or you need to empower your artifact weapon. And then we took those things away in Shadowlands because players were complaining the open world was too grindy. What happened? The open world was a desert. Nobody wanted to go in the open world because there was nothing for them to gain in terms of power. Anima doesn't give you anything anymore, Titan Forging is gone, so what am I doing in the open world? Even in Demo and Cortia and Zeret Mortis, the only reward was just a few sockets. Weeks and weeks and weeks of dailies and world quest grinding just to get sockets? That's not nearly enough. They clearly failed when giving us too much grindy stuff in Legion and BFA. They failed when they gave us far too little in Shadowlands. That's why I am reasonably positive about the open world of Dragonflight, because it feels like it is more filled with stuff, but not nearly as grindy as the previous expansions where we got the world quest introduced in the game. Again, this is still quite dependent on how grindy the actual crafting style and system of professions is going to be. If it is way too grindy and is going to put people off from even trying to interact with the system, it's going to hurt the open world a lot. It's going to mean way less players wanting to go in the open world to do anything professions related. That's a risk, but let's see how it plays out. That is my current take on the features I've been able to see, look at, test, or look at others and how they interacted with them and what was the general reaction. That was my idea on how the expansion is going. We can close, of course, with a final complaint, which is the release date. Even after giving rating to all of their systems and features of the expansion, I'm still not happy about the 28th of November release and 13th of December raid release. I think it's not good to release a raid crossing through Christmas. I think they could have delayed not the release of the expansion itself. Okay, keep your quarterly reports for 2022, but at the very least delay the release of the raid into 2023 past the holidays. I still think that would have been a better result than what we will get in Dragonflight instead. This has been the TLDR of my current takes on many of the features of Dragonflight, just for you to have a much clearer picture of where I am coming from when I am judging these features or talking about briefly about these features video by video as we go through all of the news of Dragonflight. So, with this video being done, we can now stop for today as usual. Thank you guys, of course, for watching the video, and the first of the thanks goes to my Patreon supporters who are helping myself and this channel a lot. Also, if you want to support in other ways which don't include spending a single dime, you can like and comment down below. I'm gonna be more active in the comment section now, talking a little bit more and having some more of a dialogue with you guys down in the comments. I think it's going to be better and more expected of me overall. And lastly, of course, you can subscribe to the channel itself. Lastly, for more support and generally speaking parasocial behaviors, you can follow me on Twitter right over here. That would be quite helpful for, I think, general e-celeb needs. I still don't find the need for it, but you have to. It's a must. And also you can subscribe to my Patreon right over at this link, which will give you access to my Discord server as well. Now we are done. I have to go out. I can't tell you to do what. I don't think you can do so on YouTube, but see you guys soon. And in the meantime, finally, my God, I don't know why I'm keeping this up. You know, I could have just used my traditional Merry Christmas shirt for a video. Why do I have to get all dressed up? Jesus Christ.